The marketplace burned with noise and torchlight, a cavernous hall alive with the stink of sweat, ale, and cruelty. Celine clutched the tiny leather purse pressed against her chest, fingers trembling around the last coin she owned. The crowd was restless, eager for the next spectacle. On the block, a man was dragged forward in chains. No, not just a man. Broad shoulders bowed from bruises, hair tangled like a black mane, eyes glowing gold even through the grime. The auctioneer bellowed his name as though announcing a fallen god. The Alpha, once ruler of the northern wilds, now reduced to property. The crowd jeered. Men shouted bids as if buying a beast of burden. A merchant with jeweled fingers laughed that the wolf would make fine sport in the fighting pits. Celine's stomach turned. She had come only to watch, to satisfy her curiosity for the forbidden trade that ruined lives. Yet the sight of the Alpha brought heat to her chest. He stood proud even in defeat, wrists bleeding where the shackles bit, gaze unbroken as he swept the sea of faces. And when his eyes fell upon her, the world seemed to tilt. Something unspoken, fierce and sharp, passed between them. The bids climbed higher, coin clinking as men barked numbers. Celine's pulse hammered. She had no right to interfere, no wealth, no power, nothing but a handful of silver saved from years of mending clothes. Yet when the merchant raised his hand again, she heard her voice before she understood it. "I'll pay." The words cut through the air, soft but sure. The hall fell silent. Faces turned toward her, mocking, incredulous, scandalized. She stepped forward, purse shaking in her hand. "Every coin I have." "For him." The auctioneer squinted down at her, lips curling. "A girl buying an Alpha? With what scraps?" His laugh echoed and others joined. "Show us then." Her fingers fumbled as she opened the purse, pouring the coins into her palm. They gleamed pale under torchlight, pathetic against the piles merchants offered, yet still enough to meet the minimum. She held them out, jaw tight. "It's all I have. Take it." The hall erupted in laughter. Some spat, others shook their heads. Madness. A peasant girl for a wolf. He'll tear her apart. Celine's cheeks burned, but she did not look away. The Alpha's gaze had not shifted. He watched her as though she were the only figure in the room, something dangerous simmering in his stillness. The auctioneer, sensing entertainment, shrugged. "So be it. Sold." He slammed his staff down, the sound cracking like thunder. "The beast belongs to the girl." Chains were loosed. The Alpha staggered forward, shoulders bristling with restrained power. Before anyone could laugh again, his hand shot out, fingers iron around Celine's wrist. Gasps swept through the crowd. He pulled her close enough that she could smell him. Earth, iron, pine, and blood. His voice was a growl pitched low, carrying more promise than threat. "You are mine now." The words seared her. Whispers surged, gossip spilling like smoke. Some sneered that she would be dead by morning, others that the beast had claimed his mate. Celine's knees trembled, but she held his stare. She had not bought him to own him, not truly. She had bought him to save him from humiliation, from being broken in the pits. Yet now he loomed over her as if she had stepped willingly into his cage. A burly man shoved forward, the merchant who had nearly won. "Give him back, girl. That wolf is worth 10 times what you paid." He reached for her arm. Before Celine could shrink away, the Alpha moved. A blur of muscle and fury. He caught the man's wrist and twisted until bone cracked like dry wood. The merchant howled, dropping to his knees. The crowd fell back in a chorus of shock. The Alpha did not kill him, though his fangs glinted when he bared his teeth, but shoved him away with a snarl that froze every tongue. Celine's breath came shallow. Heat flushed her skin where his hand still circled her wrist, not painful but unyielding, claiming. She whispered, her voice only for him. "I didn't free you to fight for me." His golden eyes pierced hers. "You don't get to choose what I fight for." They left the hall together, torchlight fading behind them, whispers chasing their steps. Outside, the night was sharp with cold. Celine led him through winding alleys, the purse now empty against her side, her heart heavier than stone. She could not undo what she had done. She had bought herself into ruin, into chains no less binding than his. Her hut on the edge of the woods. She fumbled to light the hearth. The Alpha sat silent on the floor, his wounds raw and angry, yet his presence filled the tiny space as though walls bent to contain him. Celine gathered clean cloth, her hand steadier than her breath. When she reached for his arm, he caught her wrist again, gentler this time, as though weighing her intent. Why? His voice was rough, torn between suspicion and something softer. Her throat tightened. Because no one else would. For the first time his gaze faltered. He let her touch him then, let her clean the blood from his skin, though his body was rigid, his pride unbowed. She sensed the storm inside him. Rage, loss, hunger for something unnamed. When the last wound was bound, she leaned back, exhausted, and met his stare once more. The firelight painted him in bronze and shadow, a king in exile. He said nothing, but his silence was weight enough to crush the air. Outside, the forest stirred with unseen movement. A figure lingered at the tree line, watching the glow of the hut's fire, whispering words carried off by the wind. The girl doesn't know what she's brought home. And in that moment, as the alpha's golden eyes locked with hers, Celine felt both fear and certainty, the sense that she had crossed a threshold from which there would be no return. Morning came with a brittle chill. Mist curling low across the village paths as Celine stepped outside her hut. The air carried whispers before she heard words. Neighbors already gathered, their eyes sharp with scorn. Mothers tugged their children close as she passed. One voice rose, crueler than the rest. The wolf will eat her bones before the week is done. Laughter followed, loud and merciless. Celine forced her chin higher, though her throat burned. Behind her the hut door creaked. Dorian's shadow filled the frame, golden eyes narrowing as he took in the jeering crowd. He stepped forward, shoulders straight, his presence alone silencing them. But instead of words he looked at Celine, his tone edged like a blade. Is this the life you meant for me? A caged beast mocked by peasants. The villagers laughed again, emboldened by his disdain. The words stung sharper than their mockery. Celine turned on him, lips trembling with anger. I saved you from chains, not to shame me. For a heartbeat his expression darkened, something untamed flashing in his eyes, but then he turned away with a low snarl, retreating inside. The villagers dispersed, leaving Celine raw with humiliation. By noon the hut was heavy with silence. Dorian sat near the fire, his wounds bound but not healing as fast as they should. He studied her as she worked, his gaze more piercing than words. She tried to ignore it, folding linens, but the weight pressed until she spoke. You don't have to stay. You're free now. His reply came with quiet certainty. Free? You spent everything for me. Whether I like it or not, I am bound. He leaned closer, eyes burning like coals. And so are you. That night the forest shivered with strange sounds. Celine woke to a guttural growl threading through the dark. Heart racing, she rose and found him outside, bare to the moonlight, half his body shifting before her eyes. Muscles convulsed, bones twisted, fur prickled along his arms, and his teeth gleamed wolf-white. He caught her stare, shame and ferocity battling across his face. This is what you bought, he growled, voice ragged, not entirely human. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body betrayed her, frozen by awe as much as fear. The moonlight revealed beauty in his ruin, a power no chains could tame. You should leave me, he rasped, clawed fingers digging into the earth. Before I can't stop myself. Her voice broke, but she forced it out. If you were only a monster, you wouldn't warn me. The words seemed to wound him deeper than silver. He turned away, back shuddering, and vanished into the trees. When dawn came he returned, exhausted, sweat glistening on his skin. She dared not ask where he had gone, only offered water. He accepted it in silence. But as he drank, his gaze flicked to her wrist, where her sleeve had slipped back, revealing the faint shimmer of the birthmark she'd hidden all her life. His eyes narrowed. What is that? She pulled her sleeve down quickly. Nothing. His silence was heavier than accusation. By midday the village hummed with darker rumors. Celine could feel their eyes on her, feel words rising like smoke. Witch, cursed, marked. A boy dared whisper as she passed the well. The wolf isn't the danger, it's her. Her chest tightened, but she pressed forward, carrying water back to the hut. She found Dorian waiting by the door, tension carved into every line of him. They see it, don't they? His voice was low, almost pitying. The mark. You can't hide it forever. Her fists clenched. It doesn't matter what they see. I've lived with it all my life. He studied her, unreadable, and said no more. But that night, when shadows stretched long, Celine noticed flickers at the tree-line, eyes gleaming faintly, watching. Dorian's posture changed instantly, every muscle alert. His nostrils flared. "Not villagers," he whispered. "Scouts." Fear froze her where she stood. He grabbed her arm, urging her inside. "They belong to him." His voice shook with fury. "Kaelin is hunting me." She didn't know the name, but the terror in his tone told her enough. He pulled her close, his grip rough but protective. "I should leave. If I stay, I'll bring his war upon you." The thought of him gone left her chest hollow. "If you leave," she whispered, "they'll still kill me for helping you. Don't you see? I'm already marked." His eyes flared, torn between instinct and something deeper, something binding him in ways he had not chosen. Outside, a branch cracked, a shadow slipped past. The enemy was already near. Dorian's jaw tightened, his voice breaking into a vow as his gaze locked on hers. "Then we faced them together." The night deepened, heavy with danger pressing in, the promise of blood and revelation lingering in the silence that followed. The attack came at dusk, sudden as a storm breaking over calm waters. Villagers screamed as shadows swept into the square. Men with eyes too sharp, movements too fluid to be human. At their head strode Kaelin, taller than most, his cloak torn with claw marks that seemed worn as trophies. His presence silenced even the cries of children. The people turned on Celine at once, shoving her forward with frantic hands. "She brought this on us," they cried. "The cursed girl." Rough fingers tore at her arm, dragging her toward the square as if delivering a sacrifice. Dorian emerged from the crowd like a blade unsheathed, golden eyes burning. Even weakened, his steps carried the weight of command. He snarled at those who clutched Celine, tearing her free with a force that rattled the crowd. "Touch her again," he growled, voice edged with something feral, "and I will make you regret breath itself." Gasps shivered through the villagers, their fear warring with hatred. Kaelin's slow smile cut the air. "Well, well, the fallen alpha still clings to scraps," Kaelin said, his tone amused, his gaze sliding to Celine. "And this must be the girl who dares shield a wolf. Fitting. Fragile. Breakable." Dorian lunged, but his strength faltered. Kaelin met him easily, one blow sending him crashing to the dirt. The villagers shrank back, watching like spectators at a cruel play. Celine rushed to Dorian's side, pressing trembling hands to his chest. His breath came harsh, his blood dark against her fingers. He forced his eyes open, rasping, "Why won't you run?" She shook her head, tears threatening but unshed. "Because no one ever stood for me. And I won't leave you to stand alone." Her voice broke, but the truth in it steadied her spine. Dorian's gaze softened for the first time, something unspoken sparking between them like a flame catching kindling. Kaelin's laughter cracked through the square. So loyal. Perhaps not so fragile after all. He circled them like a predator, his eyes lingering on Celine's wrist where the faint mark glowed beneath torn fabric. His grin widened. "Ah, now the truth shows itself." Celine froze, every nerve alight. Kaelin's words struck like a hammer. Seer blood runs in her veins. The line thought lost. "Do you know what that means, Dorian? She is the key. With her power, an alpha can claim more than a pack. He can command legions." The villagers recoiled, fear darkening their faces. Celine's heart thundered. Her secret, the burden she had carried in silence, revealed to the world. She tried to deny it, but the mark betrayed her, glowing brighter as Kaelin reached toward her. Dorian's growl rumbled deep, primal. "You will not touch her." He rose unsteadily, blood dripping from his lip, every movement carved from pain yet driven by defiance. Kaelin only smirked. "You're broken, Dorian. You couldn't even save your own pack. Do you truly think you can save her?" Celine stood between them, trembling but unyielding. "He already has." Her voice rang sharper than she expected, cutting the silence. Kaelin's smile vanished, replaced with hunger. In a swift motion he seized her arm, dragging her close. His grip burned like fire, the glow of her mark flaring as if responding to him. She struggled, but his strength was inhuman. "I will take her," he declared, eyes sweeping the crowd. "With her power, I will rise beyond any alpha before me." Dorian roared, straining against the hands of Kaelin's men who closed around him. The sound shook the air, rattled the very bones of those who heard. Villagers cowered, but no one moved to help. Celine's cries tore through the square as Kaelin dragged her toward the forest edge. The ritual chants of his men already rising, low and fevered. Dorian fought like a man possessed, claws tearing, teeth snapping, but every strike only drew more blood. His gaze locked on Celine even as he was dragged to his knees, fury and desperation bound together. "Over my dead body," he swore, voice raw. Carrying across the night. Kaelin's men vanished into the trees with Celine, her figure swallowed by shadows. The last thing she saw before darkness closed around her was Dorian, chained and broken yet unyielding, his vow ringing in her ears like a promise carved into fate. The village square lay silent after their departure, the torches guttering in the wind. But Celine's absence was a wound, and in that wound pulsed the certainty that the true battle had only just begun. The forest closed around her like a tomb, torches burning in a ring of fire where Kaelin's men prepared their ritual ground. Celine's wrists were bound with coarse rope, her birthmark blazing through the skin as though the night itself fed upon it. The chants of wolves rose and fell, guttural and ancient, each syllable scraping against her bones. Kaelin stood before her, tall and terrible, his hand hovering above her mark. His smile was hunger incarnate. "Your bloodline was meant to serve greatness. With you, I will reign eternal." Celine twisted against her bonds, the rope biting until her skin split. Fear ran sharp through her veins, but beneath it beat something fiercer. She thought of Dorian broken in chains, refusing to bow. The memory hardened her resolve. "I will never be yours," she spat. Kaelin only laughed, brushing a claw along her cheek. "You will not have a choice." The ritual began with a howl that split the sky. Flames leapt higher, the air shuddering with unseen power. Celine's mark flared so brightly it hurt to look at, her body trembling as if pulled between worlds. She cried out, the sound lost beneath the chanting. Kaelin lifted a blade, its edge glinting with moonlight. "Your bond will be sealed in blood." Then the ground shook. A roar erupted from the trees, deeper than thunder, a sound that stilled every throat. Dorian burst through the circle, chains trailing from his wrists like shattered relics. His body was no longer man's. Fur bristled, eyes burning gold, teeth bared in a snarl that made even Kaelin's men falter. He moved with the fury of a storm unleashed, scattering wolves with each strike. Celine's heart surged with relief and terror all at once. Kaelin met Dorian head-on, their clash reverberating through the clearing. Claws raked, jaws snapped, the air alive with the crack of bone and the hiss of blood on firelit earth. Celine struggled against her bonds, the mark on her wrist glowing in rhythm with Dorian's heartbeat. She felt it, each strike, each wound, as though their souls had already intertwined. Kaelin overpowered him at first, driving him to the ground, snarling triumph. "You were always weaker than me," he spat, pressing Dorian's face into the dirt. Celine screamed, the sound tearing through the ritual. Her mark flared, blinding white. The rope binding her wrists crumbled like ash. Power surged through her veins, ancient and wild. Without thought, she pressed her hand to the earth, and the ground answered. Light coursing in veins across the soil, Dorian felt it. The strength that had been failing him returned in a rush, as though her touch poured fire into his blood. He surged upward, driving Kaelin back with renewed force. Their movements blurred. Fang against fang, claw against claw. Kaelin lunged, but Celine's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Now!" Dorian struck in perfect harmony with her cry, his jaws clamping on Kaelin's throat. Light from Celine's mark surged into him, sealing the strike. Kaelin's roar choked into silence as his body crumpled to the ground, lifeless. The clearing fell still. Flames guttered low, shadows retreating. Kaelin's men fled into the trees, their courage dissolving without their master. Dorian staggered, blood soaking his fur, his chest heaving. Celine ran to him, catching his weight as he shifted, the beast giving way to the man. His golden eyes softened as they met hers. "You should have let me fall," he whispered, voice frayed. Tears blurred her vision, but her hands steadied as she pressed them against his heart. "I couldn't. I won't." The glow of her mark dimmed, settling into warmth that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He covered her hand with his own, strength returning beneath her touch. "Mine," he breathed, not as a command but as a vow. "Always." The remaining wolves, those who had followed Kaelin, crept back into the clearing. But instead of attacking, they bowed, their heads lowered in recognition. Dorian stood taller, bloodied but unbroken, his presence commanding even in ruin. The night itself seemed to bend toward him, acknowledging the alpha restored. Yet his gaze never left Celine, as though the world could crumble around them and he would not look away. They walked back to the village at dawn, the horizon painted with fire and gold. The people gathered in stunned silence as they appeared. Celine marked with light, Dorian cloaked in the dignity of one who had reclaimed what was his. No words were spoken, but the sight alone told the tale. A girl who had given everything, and an alpha who had risen from the ashes to claim not only his power but his mate later. When quiet returned, Celine stood outside the hut, watching the sun spill through the trees. Dorian came beside her, his hand brushing against hers, calloused and warm. He did not speak at first, only breathed with her, as if learning the rhythm of peace. At last he said, low and certain, "Your sacrifice bound us. What you gave me, it was everything." She leaned into him, eyes closing, her voice a whisper against the morning air. "And what I gained was more than I ever dreamed, because I found you." The forest stirred with life, the scars of night already fading. Yet in Celine's heart burned the truth that neither chains nor shadows could sever. Their bond had been forged in blood and fire, destined and unbreakable. And though their story had only begun, its first chapter ended with certainty. She had saved him and he had claimed her, not as property, but as the other half of his soul.